Living in the Past is a Turtle, Mysteries of Azeroth, and Everlook Broadcasting production. This is Living in the Past, your Everlook Broadcasting Company weekly show about all things Turtle, Mysteries of Azeroth. Today is Friday, April 19th, 2024, and I'm Dan, your host for the next hour. Happy Friday once again, Turtle. It's good to have you here. We're going to be starting out today with the usual suspects, patch notes, music for today. In our second segment, we're going to be talking a bit about how we approach alting and how I approach alting and how some of us may get trapped in alt hell, as one might say. And then for our final segment, it's a lot of cleanup. It's a lot of smaller segments in our final segment, including a shout out to Vrograg, guild shout out planning, under the shell scheduling, and a few other minor bits and bobs. Let's go ahead and get right into our first segment. We're going to start out at least here with patch notes. There's not a ton, but some of them are pretty important. The big one, and I think everyone's going to feel this to a certain extent because a lot of people were making a lot of money off of this one, but stock limitations on patterns, recipes, plans, schematics, and formulas from all vendors have now been removed. Now, what I believe this means, and I haven't been on to confirm this yet, but what I believe this means is anything that had a limited stock for a recipe of some kind now is just buyable. It is just like any other vendor item. You can just buy it whenever you want. No stock limitations. That's really big. A lot of people are making a lot of money off of this, myself included. I've made a lot of money off of grabbing those when they're available and making sure to upcharge them on the auction house. So that's no longer a thing. Don't, especially for the runecloth bag pattern. That one was a doozy, if I remember correctly. I remember camping out in Everlook for that one on my priest. With that being said, though, there are other patch notes here. Another one, and I think a lot of us had a good laugh with this one, but Calm Elements made the elements angry. It brought out the Angie in Elements. And now it no longer does that. It no longer makes the elements angry. So you don't have to worry about, okay, we want to skip these mobs. We want to calm them down in Molten Core. Oh, God, they're all angry at us now. That's going to be a wonderful change for shamans. I'm sure shamans across the board are rejoicing. Also, apparently drop conditions for the Tome of Portals Theramore was not functioning correctly. My question to all of you is this. This might be a everyone's pointing the finger at someone else here. Does anyone know anyone who has gotten one of the portal books out of Karazhan yet? Because I don't know anyone that has, to be honest. Now I know that was supposed to have been fixed and updated. I still don't know anyone who's gotten one of those books. So if anyone has, you let me know, because I'm legitimately kind of curious if anyone's gotten them yet. But that is most of the patch notes. There's one or two others, but I don't really understand the implications. I know they resolved an issue with the Guardians of the Altar quest, but I'm not sure about that one. Also, Sweeping Strikes was apparently hitting PvP flagged players, even if the warrior that hit Sweeping Strikes was not flagged. Which, admittedly, that's frustrating, it's annoying, but the use case of that is so minute. So minute. Moving on here, everyone. This is going to be a little bit of a shorter show. Right now, it feels like there is a little bit of a content drought here on Turtle, and that's not to say there isn't tons of stuff to go out and do into the world. Far from the case of that. But it feels like, especially the changelogs, this changelog in particular feels a little slim, and it makes me ask the question: do we have something big on the horizon? Because generally speaking, when you see these almost like content droughts, or activity droughts, I should say, it's because everyone's really busy leading up to something else. Now, I will say, for context, I actually don't look at the development channels that give indications as to what's being worked on. I've talked about this before. We have our private communications channels for Turtle, and while they exist and I could look at them, I actually don't, because it would become very difficult to figure out what I can and can't talk about on a much more regular basis. So I prefer to keep myself in the dark and stay on the side of, I can't say anything I shouldn't because I don't know anything I shouldn't, if that makes sense. So this is coming from a legitimate point of, I don't know exactly what's going on. But I will say, when we have these kinds of activity droughts, it really does feel like, all right, something big is coming. Like the calm breath before the storm, almost, you know? That's what it kind of feels like. So while today's show may be a little slim, and maybe next week's as well, depending. Although next week we are doing guild shoutouts. And hopefully you all understand what that entails. Please understand what that entails. Next week, in the run-up to Friday, so like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, please make sure you're popping your guild promotions in the official Turtle Discord channels. There's recruitment channels for both Telebeam and Nordinar. Please get those in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Because Thursday, this is going to be most of my Thursday, because it takes a lot of editing to kind of clean everything up. Thursday, I go through and I pull as many as I can. I try to get a wide variety of guild notifications and shoutouts in that segment. But what I do essentially is I pull as many as I can and I load them into a document, and then I just clean them up and organize them. So if you want your guild to have the best shot at being included next week in the guild shoutouts, make sure, please make sure you are putting your guild promotions in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in those channels. That's very, very important. Next week, we're not going to have a lack of content. Let me tell you. That's probably going to be about a third of the show, maybe half. But that's always fun. Like, it's always fun when we do guild shoutouts. And the last time, we got some new ones in, which felt really nice. So keep that in mind. Please, if you are a guild master or an officer that is in charge of recruiting, get those notifications out Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week. And that's in the official Discord recruitment channels. If you do not have access to post in those channels, by the way, just post in the support channel in Discord, and the wonderful support staff will get you hooked up with that ASAP. And they do a good job of keeping up on that stuff. So thank you to them big time. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the music here for today. I'm in a ska mood right now. It was actually, as I was showering this morning and getting ready for my day here, I just, like, I was listening to the Green Day station on Pandora, and it just kind of like slid into being ska for some reason. Like Goldfinger popped up, Sublime. Just normally it just popped up on that mix. So I'm in a ska mood today. So for our first break here, we're going to be having Superman by Goldfinger, Come On Eileen by Save Ferris. That's a cover. And another cover, Take On Me by Real Big Fish. When we come back here on Living in the Past, we're going to be talking about alting. How do you approach alting? How do I approach alting? The different ways that we can sometimes get stuck in alting. The ways that we use alts to support what we do as raiders and as people who are active on the server. Don't go anywhere. Enjoy the musical break. When we come back, more Living in the Past coming up right after this. The musical tracks for this episode have been removed due to YouTube copyright. To listen to the full episodes with music, tune in to Everlook Broadcasting every Friday with the in-game radio widget. Welcome back to Living in the Past with myself, Dan. It's good to have you here today on this April 19th, 2024 edition of the broadcast. We're back out of the break. Let's talk a little bit about alts. Obviously, we have our mains. We have our characters that, okay, no, this is the character that's geared to go into Nax. These are the rest of my characters I use to not go into Nax. That kind of thing. We all have our mains that we need to support. Sometimes alts can do the trick. For example, and I think most people will recognize this struggle, if you're going to be raiding Nax and up, because now with other raids coming out, we need to think about after Nax, which is odd. That's an odd feeling, but I kind of like it. But if you're going to be raiding Nax and up, you're also having engineering as your primary profession. Like your absolute, this is what I spend most of my time on outside of raiding on this character kind of thing. Now, maybe you support it with mining. Maybe you have enchanting as well. Or maybe you have a different profession to support engineering or support your character in some way. But you have engineering. Engineering, elixirs and flasks, does not make. So you have an alt that has herbalism and alchemy. You don't raid, or maybe you raid a little bit for fun. I know, raiding for fun. I know, all of you are going to be like, Dan, what are you talking about? We don't raid for fun. We raid to get that done. Raid for fun on alts. So maybe you have a druid alt that you do herbalism and alchemy on. Honestly, being a druid makes it just a touch easier. In TBC, it made it much, much, much easier. But even in vanilla, it made it a little bit easier. And you use that to actively support your main. Let's say you also have an enchanting alt that is strictly there. That the only reason that alt exists is because it's there to break things. So it's not even like an enchanting alt, it's a disenchanting alt, but also it's there to process all the random blues and greens that you collect that you can actually mail off. Obviously, some things, blues-wise, are attached to your person. but you do get random bits. So maybe you have an alt that is just about breaking stuff. And then you have the bank alts. And then you have the bank alts with more bags than your main. Like, on your main, obviously, you have most of the bank slots unlocked and whatnot. But on your bank alt, you have all the bank slots unlocked. And you probably use a vast majority of that space. I know, so when Pugonomics was still around on Turtle, one of our folks, Death Shots, had one bank alt just for ammunition. I'm not even joking. He had multiple bank alts, but one of them was dedicated just to ammunition storage as a hunter. And before I really got a hunter into the 40s and 50s, I'm like, what do you do? Why? There's no way you can use up that much ammo in even just a month. Oh no, you can use that up in half a week if you're actually actively playing. I always wanted to call nonsense on him for having that, but now I get it. I absolutely get it. So you have your bank alts, and then you have your side bank alts, apparently, that's a thing. Because you just need that ammo. But then you have the alts, and this is where problems can come in. You have the alts that are there because they make your brain feel good. And this is kind of why I have the warrior, because I like to grind on the warrior, and just it's kind of mindless for me. I can just kill. You have those alts that just make your brain feel good. And instead of supporting what you do in any way, instead of adding to what you do on a regular basis, they just absorb your time. And maybe not even just your time, your time and your energy. Because instead of, okay, no, I have to get my explosive charges made on engineering. I got to go out and farm those resources. I got to go get this done to prep for NAX here this week. You're over on your little shaman that's 23, and you're dinking around trying to see how much of Ragefire Chasm you can solo at that level. It doesn't do any good for you. Well, I think one could argue you're developing skills. So maybe that's doing some good. But you get the idea. It's not getting you the direct progress you need right now. It's not adding to how much you're going to contribute to these week's raids. But let's flip that on its head a little bit, because with how many raids that are available on Turtle, some of us raid a lot. Even if you try to do half the raids that are available on the server, suddenly you're looking at 15 hours? Just about? That's a lot of time. That's a lot of time to be locked in and focused. So sometimes having those alts is that kind of pressure release that you need, where you can just be a dinky little character, and what you do is not nearly as important. Suddenly that I'm not doing anything time turns into, oh, thank goodness I'm not doing anything time, if that makes sense. So while we may get trapped in alting, some of us, don't be afraid to raise your hand right now out there. Some of us you can all raise your hand now, are Altaholics. And we have all of the character slots on Turtle used up. Some of you are not raising your hand that you should be. Some of you should be raising your hand twice. That's the way it is, though. And more than anything else, it's about having fun. So maybe some of us stress about that kind of thing, but as long as you're maintaining a healthy balance of time use, I think it's going to be all good. Before we get to our next music break, which is going to include the impression that I get by Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, and no, I'm not going to make the joke this time, Santeria by Sublime, and Don't Speak by No Doubt, we have a message from our goblin overlords that we need to transmit. So, without further ado, or listening to the message ahead of time, we'll see how well this goes, I present to you this message from our goblin conglomerate overlords.
Goblin APB alert. The long-awaited moment has come. In universal agreement with the High Goblin Council of Traders, we are shorting shell coin. That's right, get your shorts in now and dump tomorrow at 3 p.m. The scam's in, the shell coin's been bought, and now we're rolling out our Just Rewards. Yeah, Just Rewards for the goblins. Gobbling up that shell coin gold. Gobble, gobble, gobble that shell coin gold. Yeah.
This has been the Goblin APB Alert. We now return you to your regularly scheduled programming.
The musical tracks for this episode have been removed due to YouTube copyright. To listen to the full episodes with music, tune in to Everlook Broadcasting every Friday with the in-game radio widget. Welcome back to Living in the Past for our final segment here this afternoon. Thank you again for joining me here today. I'm Dan. Just a few quick notes here before we close up shop today. First off, Vrogreg Fishslayer is having his 1-year anniversary of being the orc and doing the news here on April 27th. So, what I'm going to want you all to do is that day, head over to his YouTube page. He's going to be live, and I want you to thank him for being the orc and doing the news. He's got some big things coming up for that day, including a potential face reveal. So that's fun. Go over there, enjoy the day with him. It's a Saturday. Have a fun Saturday with him on the 27th. Congratulations, Vrogreg. Also, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, guild shoutouts are next week. So please, 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 once again, if you are a guild master or a recruitment officer, get your guild promotions in Tuesday through Thursday sometime in this coming week. That way, you have the best opportunity to actually get your guild promotion in on the show next week. And you guys know, whenever I do guild shoutouts, that takes up sometimes nearly half of the broadcasts. So be ready for that. It's going to be a long one, but it's always worth it. Also, as a note, Under the Shell for this month has been pushed back. It might be early May instead. This is per Akalix's request. He wants to sync it up with a couple other things that are going on for the server. So we probably aren't going to have our next Under the Shell until early May. But that's fine. Again, it's for the purposes of creating more clarity and transparency for the server. So however they want to handle it, I'm totally okay with. So just so you all are aware, it's not like it doesn't exist anymore. It's just there's a slightly larger delay than expected between the first one and the second episode coming up here. And outside of the world of Turtle and Warcraft in general, there's a couple games that are going on that I've had my eye on. Right now, there's a test going on for something called Gray Zone Warfare. If you like Tarkov, it's very much in that same vein of Tarkov Hunt Showdown kind of style. Very much mission-based extraction shooter. I don't know how much PvP is involved, but I do believe there's some. Also, Manor Lords. Manor Lords is coming out on the 26th next week. There will still be a show next week. I am doing the guild shoutouts. I'm going to have to wait. So I work 3 jobs. I am going to have to wait until next weekend to actually play it. And it's going to be tough because I've been so excited for Manor Lords. Manor Lords is kind of a very down-to-earth medieval village builder. Absolutely stunning. Gorgeous looks. I'm so excited for it. But that's kind of what's going on outside of Turtle for me right now. I will actually get some time to play Manor Lords at some point next weekend. Very excited for that. With that being said, though, hopefully you all are buying up your shell coin. You heard the announcement. Get your shell coin. Get your shell coins bought up, people. Thank you for taking the time to join me today. Our nostalgia continues, even though today's broadcast is at an end, and I hope you enjoyed the show here today. A huge thank you to the Turtle developers, moderators, staff, and volunteers. Without the entire team's hard work and dedication, we wouldn't have this station or server group. An additional thank you to the audio engineers and creators here for the use of their soundtracks they've created, which we use for segment transitions and intro audio. If you'd like to find out more about what I do, I invite you to check out my YouTube channel, which I haven't updated in months, at youtube.com/@thedannation, and my series Ancient Lore, a recapture of the spirit of my original podcast, The Ancient of Lore. Until next Friday, let's keep living in the past.